know. It changes where the buttons
I got
are.
it now. I got it
There
now.
we go.
Okay.
Okay. So I liked what you did here with the little different summary pieces to make it a little easier for us to track what was happening in
Uh-huh.
each beat
Yeah.
and the emotional tone you want to convey to the reader. I added just a summary title
Good.
and that emotional piece.
Okay, great.
And this is a tool that you can use to like figure out when the order of something doesn't make sense,
Uh-huh.
when you need to do a bigger shift or your shift between beats isn't long enough, that sort of thing. This can really help. So, this first, and I used for the emotions, I
Uh-huh.
used kind of what we had talked about last time, as well as your summaries to identify them. They're just placeholders. Obviously, we can shift them around
Right.
based off of what you want.
Okay.
But it felt to me like Margot being by herself in this art museum, where she's kind of looking at the connection that she made with this painting, even though we don't really know what it means to her. She's kind of at this like emotional sense of peace.
Hmm.
Um, then she sees the twins approaching, they're coming up. She's kind of thinking about them, remembering her past. I'm thinking that pride might be the right, like she sees her sons, these grown men, they, she's proud of them. And it kind of felt like a good transition from like the sense of inner peace to now like the pride that she has for her boys.
Uh-huh.
Then you have them approaching. There wasn't a lot of detail in the activity here, other than how they're reacting to her.
Uh-huh.
But that's okay because that leads us more toward like the emotion of the scene. And this is where you have a lot of control. I mean, honestly, you have control everywhere, but
Right.
you get to make a decision here of
Mhm.
what journey do you want the reader to go on now? So we have this sense of like calm, this pride. Do we want, when they come up to her and say hello, do we want her to feel like this swell of pride moving into love? Do we want it to be this pride moving to sadness because she has to tell them something really
Yeah.
difficult and she doesn't love the tension between them? Does she feel the pressure? You can kind of pick which emotion you want.
Hmm.
This is one of those places where I would probably say figure out the whole trajectory and come back to this scene, or excuse me, this beat, because you can kind of, you want it to link the different beats together. So
Okay.
maybe going back to it later. I
Right.
added this, I'm going to come back to this in a second. I just
Okay.
want to keep going through.
No problem.
Um, so then you've got this one where she actually shares the news with them about the mass in her kidney.
Right.
You have them reacting very differently and us seeing it with their tension increasing. I like this element that you've identified, that they're kind of like they're being cordial to each other here, but you can
Right.
see some tension. But when we get here, we're
Yeah.
actually feeling that a little bit more. I think that was really great.
Okay.
So the next thing is to decide, how does she feel when she tells them about the mass? Is there a sense of relief that it's now out there? Is it a sadness that she's dying? Is it more of a like, okay, I have half of it over, but there's still more to come? So that's
Hmm.
something for you to think about.
Okay.
The way that you have beat 5 written is that the boys, oh, wait, sorry, I skipped 4. Wait, where am I? Yes, this is right. She tells them. Okay, so then you have in beat 5, the boys kind of start planning about like what's next, what do we do? That's causing them a little bit more frustration,
Uh-huh.
which
Right.
Margot kind of retreats into her painting. As she retreats, she's feeling some regret, and that regret works in both sides, where she regrets that the boys aren't as close as she wants them to be,
Hmm.
regret that she's not going to see them, regret that she has this other big deal to tell them. But regret is a really strong emotion that readers
Okay.
connect to really well. And
Right.
again, you're taking this like peaceful love, pride, positive emotion, and now you're starting to take it down into a more negative emotion. So you
Got
can
it.
kind of see it moving kind of in a slow direction.
Hmm.
So then the next scene you had here was that she's saying that the painting is important to her, and she moves away from the sickness and then comes back to it, and the boys are suggesting they move to the cafe, but they agree to sit on the bench.
Right.
So I think this could be an important element, but what emotion are you trying to convey here? Because if she's distracting and she's focusing on the painting, is that avoidance you want her to feel? If they're pressuring her to go somewhere else and she just wants to stay here for the comfort, is she feeling pressure in a different way to like just do what they want? Does she dig in, and does the swell of the need to please them outweigh? But as we're like looking at the emotional trajectory where she's in this really intense regret moment, all of the emotions that these things kind of evoked for me
Uh-huh.
felt distracting from this
Right.
really impactful moment. So, my recommendation is to take this section here about the boys suggesting they go to the cafe. She wants
Right.
to stay close, and actually move it up here
Yeah, I saw that.
to
Yeah. Good.
this place. So that way you're not taking away from your
That's
emotional
good.
flow with that distraction.
Right.
And this tool can kind of help you see when you've got something that distracts you from the emotional flow, because as you're picking this emotion, it didn't fit with the one before or the one after. So it was a little easier for us to see that, hey, maybe this is breaking your rhythm.
Yeah.
So then we get into the next one, which you have her like, okay, let's get into the information about what the doctor said. Again, this one to me, she tells them about the mass in the kidney. Well, she had told them about the mass
Yeah.
up
Already up here.
here.
Yeah.
So, like, if there's a reason that she has to go back to it, did she not tell them everything? Is there more? Is she using it as like a bridge? Okay, so I told you about that, but let me tell you about this other part. Again, this is one of those things that
Right. Right.
if you need it, maybe you go back to it. Otherwise, you have a lot of other content that is more emotionally
Yeah.
impactful.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Good.
can just skip 6 and 7.
This, yeah. Wait a second now. 6 and 7. You mean forget about 6 and 7?
Yeah, I would just take them out.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's
So,
you move that one part up on top, and then I'm really just telling about the sickness again. Yeah, you're right. Okay,
yeah,
that's good. That's good.
yep.
That's good.
So then you get into 8 and 9, which are really kind of the heart of the
Right.
scene. This idea that she's telling them the truth about the DNA test, and it wasn't just about the kidney, and your DNA doesn't match. This is creating that first moment of true stress, right?
Yeah.
Because there's this moment of like, okay, there was stress about my diagnosis, there's stress about you two fighting with each other, but none of that was new stress. She's been dealing with this with the doctor's appointments. She's figured it out. She knows the DNA test. So this really becomes like a key pivotal moment. Then when we read number 9, there are actually two parts to this. This
Yeah. Yeah.
first part was her really like going into the myth and connecting her life to the myth.
Hmm.
and the fact that there were two men in her past. To me, that was really kind of evoking this shame from
Hmm.
her. But then you have this moment where she's telling them that you two aren't actually brothers,
Yeah.
which creates a fear response, right?
Right.
Like this,
Right.
I have been holding on to this secret for the 20 or 30 years of your life, and here it is. So, as I was kind of thinking through the emotional arc of this, you've got stress, and then you move to shame, and then you move to fear. The
Hmm.
beats of that don't feel very smooth to me, especially when you're coming from regret. So, to
Yeah.
me, it makes more sense to go from regret, where she's retreating into the painting, to this moment of shame. So I have regret, I'm feeling
Right.
shame. I'm going to tell you about the myth. The boys are probably going to be like, Mom, what are you talking about? Then she goes into this idea of the DNA wasn't about the
Right.
kidney. It was to know who your father was. I found out that it doesn't match. They have this blow up, which is taking that stress a little bit
Right.
higher.
Right.
And then she tells them who their fathers actually are. And now they have this huge clash with each other,
Yeah.
which turns into fear for her.
Right. Okay. So let's eliminate. Maybe we can do this right now. We eliminate what is it, 6 and 7?
Okay. So you want me to just take them out?
Yeah, is that what you said? Yeah.
Yep. That's what I said.
Wait a second. Except the part where you said to move up, or you already moved it up.
I
You
moved
already
that up.
moved it
That's
up.
up here.
Yeah, okay, let's take 6 and 7 out,
Okay.
and then we'll switch. And then we'll switch the order of 8 and 9. We'll make 9, 8,
Okay.
and 8, 9. Right? I
All right.
think that's what we
So,
said. Yeah.
yep. Then we take these out.
Right. Right. Right.
Let me stop tracking changes.
Because they're going to discuss the myth first, and then she's going to tell them about why, with the DNA thing.
Right.
Right. That makes sense.
Okay. So now 6 becomes the myth.
Yeah, all that 8 there, all that information on 8.
And then you've got DNA doesn't match. And
Right.
then two fathers are revealed, which leads to fear. And
Right.
now your arc goes from
Yeah.
like the positive of peace and pride and love to then some
Hmm.
sadness, into regret, into shame, into stress, and then directly into fear.
Yeah. And this is Margot's fear
Margot's
of
fear.
of
Right.
actually telling about the fathers.
Right. And
Right.
they're exploding on her about, like, I actually know who your father is. He's not dead. I made this decision to tell you this because I was trying to
One
protect
of them.
you.
One of them is.
Right.
But she doesn't
But
know.
she didn't know that
Right.
before. So she made the decision in her mind when she was pregnant, that she was going to tell them the story, but now the truth is revealed.
Right.
So
Right.
then she reveals that Leonidas is actually alive, which
Uh-huh.
is when the boys blow up at each other. You noted it here, and they go
Right.
at each other full force.
Right.
So now, not only has she been dealing with this shame all of her life, all of her fears have come true. And when she told them, they exploded. They're attacking each other, they're attacking her, right? It's like as bad as she could have imagined.
Hmm.
And you see, like, as we're using the words
Yeah.
related to
Yeah.
the emotions,
Yeah.
we're using really nuanced words. It's not just stress. It's not just all of these beats are fear, because what we want to do is, as you're telling the story, as you're letting this roll out in what Margot is experiencing, because Margot's your vehicle, she's the one
Mhm.
we're going along with. As
Yeah.
she starts to feel stress, we start to feel stress. As she starts to feel fear, we start to feel fear. And that's like ratcheting up the intensity. And then we get to the point where, oh, by the way, not only is the guy that I told you is your father is dead, dead, but the guy who is actually your father, Antonius, is alive, right? So, like, this all comes crashing down on her. And then you identified the ending where you know what you want the reader to feel with
Uh-huh.
these inner thoughts and concerns, but there wasn't an actual ending to the story.
Right.
So
Right.
you're going to want to decide what happens. Maybe Antonius is so angry he says something hateful and leaves.
Hmm.
Castor stays behind to tell his mom, you've got that great line in there about like, Mom, you were always enough. This
Right.
doesn't change anything. Maybe
Right.
he stays, and then the way that you show this inner thought and concern, instead of her just thinking about it, she has Castor to talk to, and she can say, don't let your brother go alone, right? Like, I know you don't care about this, but he's gonna, he always wanted a dad and didn't have a
Right.
dad. I
Right.
really need you to step up and be the man
Right.
that
And
I
that,
know you can be,
yeah,
whatever it is.
that fits in with the bigger story too.
Right.
You're right. You're right.
And then that leaves us with this uncertain hope of like,
You're right.
maybe Castor
Right.
can be enough for Antonius. Maybe they can go. Maybe Castor pushes back and is like, Mom, I love you. I would do anything for you, but I can't do that.
Right.
Right. Like Antonius wouldn't want me there. He doesn't, we don't understand each other, whatever it is. Right. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
however
Yeah.
you decide to make that happen.
Yeah.
But that does exactly what you are talking about here, where you're leaving the reader with a sense of uncertainty.
Uh,
There's this pressure. The one son is like, I don't want anything to do with you ever again. I can't believe you lied to me. I could have had a father my entire life. You probably have to say something here in the Leoninus being alive section. I'll just make a note here. Um, I didn't tell you because he was a coward.
right.
Better to have a dead hero
Yeah.
for a dad than a coward.
An alive coward.
Right.
Coward who's alive. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
something along those
Yeah.
lines, just
Yeah. Right.
something
Right.
to justify, because it's not just enough for her to tell him that his father's alive, but there has to be that gut punch on why,
Right.
and
Right.
Antonius has to say something like, I've asked you over and over and over about my father. You saw me like mourning this, even though he died before I was born, and you kept this from me. That really leaves you to this like
The end.
end moment of,
Right.
and I would actually probably put Antonius leaving with a hard, painful shot, would actually move that up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that way,
Yeah. That's better.
yeah. And then, so what you're, by doing it like this, you're fixing the ending to not be super resolved.
Yeah.
Sometimes as
Right.
writers, for our own sake, we want the story to be resolved. So we bring everybody back to, and then they lived happily ever after. But you don't want to end your readers at happily ever after for
Yeah.
something like this, because you have so much more story to tell. You want to leave them in this uncertainty.
Good. 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 That's good. So let's if we could, let's just review it again.
Yep.
We'll start at the very beginning. And I want to kind of jot down another separate piece of paper so I get it in my head. So we've got number one, where there's this is Margot's POV throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So she's at the painting, and there's a kind of a peaceful feeling that she has looking up at this um, painting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't want her too peaceful, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like she's in a state of bliss, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
She,
So
she's got
make
a
her
little
peace.
bit of anxiety because
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't really know what's going to happen here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
So it could be instead of peace, it could be wanting peace,
yeah, yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
or longing. Longing
Yeah,
is a good
something like
word
that. Yeah.
here.
That's why I just want to kind of just go over it,
Yep.
make sure I get the right. She definitely wants peace. That's why she's doing all this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the boys come and she feels pride, but she also feels when it reminds her of the two men, she's not really, that's not about the pride. It's a little offset to pride. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a contrast. That's what I'm looking for right there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Good. And then the third beat is how the boys are reacting to her or each other. I'm trying to think or
So
how
both. And this is where, in the same way you've got pride and regret here,
yeah,
the complexity of the emotions can play in here. So this can be both love and sadness, right? She has this love for them and she loves how they treat her, but she's sad because they
right.
can't be what she wants for them as brothers.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, good. And then we switch the order around. Then they suggest they go someplace other than there. But she wants to stay closer to playing, so they sit on this bench, you know, they at the museum, you know. So we're
Mm-hmm.
moving into the fourth one, and they're asking her, she tells them about the kidney thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now see, I have it where they ask her why they have to a museum of all places. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yep.
So that's got to be
I
kind
would
of
do that up here, right? So this becomes like, hello, mom, you look so great. I'm, you know,
yeah,
can we can we go to the cafe?
yeah,
We want
yeah.
to hear about what the doctor says. And she's like, no, no, we're gonna stay here.
Okay,
They're like, okay, I don't understand why we're here, but since we're here, just tell us what happened.
all right,
Right?
that's
Like,
it. That's
they're
it.
putting this pressure on her to tell them. And this sadness is coming from the place, not just of how they're treating each other, but like, I am now going to change my relationship with them forever with this news that I
Yeah,
have.
right. That's right.
We, as the reader, think it's about the doctor and the news with the kidney,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah,
you, as the
right. Yeah.
author, know that it's way more than that.
Okay. Okay. So then they discussed um the kidney thing. Now,
I'm going to move this one up here.
yeah, there you go. There you go. So I thought about this kidney thing, and I'm gonna make it more of a serious something serious. I was reading something. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go get it. Hold on. Stay
Sure.
right there. Don't go away. Don't go away.
Okay, I'll stay.
In this book I'm reading now, and have you ever heard of this? You know this guy, Nosgard,
No.
Norwegian writer.
The
He's won all kinds of
Wolves.
awards. This is his latest one, The Wolves of Eternity,
Okay.
and one of the characters has this really sick. It's really a bad cancer. So
Mm,
a mass on a kidney's not enough, you
yeah.
know. So I'm changing that. That's why I said I'm going to change that to a more of a, she's only got a few months,
Mm-hmm.
rather than mess and kidding. You can live with that for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I just want to throw that in there. So
Yeah.
on this one here, it's all about the doctor and what he found.
Okay.
Okay. And that's sadness or relief. Then we go to 5. Um, now let's talk about this. This is where I get a little bit confused here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this is her POV, and she retreats into the painting. Um, she's listening to the boys go back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's um, when we say retreats into her painting, she's in her thoughts or thinking about that painting.
Yeah.
Think,
So the way that I see
yeah,
this happening is she tells them not just that she has a mass in her kidney, but that
yeah,
she has 3 months to
right,
live, right?
whatever it is. Yeah,
They're reacting differently. Castor is all about, I'm so sorry.
yeah, yeah.
I love you.
Yep.
How can we
We're
make
here
things
for you. You're not gonna be alone.
right?
All this. Right.
Antonius, on the other hand, I can never spell
Antonis.
that.
Antonis. Yeah.
Antonis. Okay. So Antonis is all about we have to fight other doctors,
Right, right.
other
Well,
treatments,
yep, yep. Got it. Good.
and he starts making plans.
Uh-huh.
Then the mother is watching this, right? So like
Right.
Castor says, I'm so sorry. She says it's okay. Antonia says there are other doctors. She says no more doctors.
Yeah, yeah,
Castor says, Mom, we love you. Antonia says, Mom, we love you. We can't just let this go. She
yeah,
says, boys, I've lived a full life. I love you both. You are the light of my life.
yeah, yeah.
We don't have to do this. Then they start making plans. Castor's like, well, you'll move in with me. Antonius is like, that's a great idea, but we need to take care of these other things. They start talking and she starts listening to them,
Mhm.
but thinking about her own self. So you hear Castor make a plan and Antonis, is that how you're
Yeah.
saying
Antonis. Yeah.
it?
Yep. That's it.
Antonis makes a plan and Margot thinks so much like their fathers,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then they are saying something else. And you know how in on TV or in a book, people start fading away from the main part of the conversation,
Yeah.
and something will like they're talking. She's watching them, but she's not hearing what they're saying. She's watching their body language. She's looking at the painting and she's saying, oh, if I had only known back then what I know now as I look at this painting, right? So
So
there's,
we're in 5 now.
yes, we're in
Yeah,
5 now,
we're in 5.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
is where she starts caring more about what she's feeling and what she has to tell them. So, like, this part is already done.
Right,
This all actually is up here.
right.
Um, right in here. Right? So they are like making plans and they're kind of getting along. You've got that great part of the scene where she flashes back to being at the Acropolis, I
Yeah,
think it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
One
yeah,
man on each side, both of them are
yeah, yeah.
fighting for her. She's hearing that. She's watching the body language.
Mhm.
She maybe smiles because Antonis does something that reminds her of his father,
Right.
and all of the regret of like, I should have told them, I should have been better for them, I should have made a different choice back then.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
of
yeah.
that comes crashing down while she's watching the boys. You can't let them go. They
Right,
have to be at the forefront. But what they're saying doesn't matter
right.
until you get to this place where she has to bring it back. One
Uh-huh.
of them has to say something write it down, that brings her back to now.
Right. Right.
Either they're starting to get too loud, they're starting to fight with each other,
Yeah.
they're making plans for, maybe they've agreed that like, okay, I know that you want her to get another MRI, and I want her to just be comfortable. So maybe we agree to like
Hmm.
something. And then she's like, wait, boys, you're missing the point here. I brought you here to tell you something really important.
Yeah.
However, she brings it back to like,
Uh,
let me tell you a story,
yeah.
right? Let me tell you why we're here. And the boys can be like, we're here so you can tell us your news. She's like, yes,
Uh-huh.
the news. But look at this painting with me. Let me tell you the story. Let me tell you this myth,
Yeah.
right? Like there
Then
has,
and then they have a discussion about the myth, all of them.
yes. And there has to be some confusion on their part
Yeah.
about like, mom, we have more important stuff to talk about. And she has to dig in and she has to be like, no, you need to understand this. I am dying. I have to tell you this.
Yeah.
So
Good.
then they concede. Maybe they bicker with each other a little bit, right? Like Antonius is like, mom, we have to talk about this. uh Castor is like, okay, mom, if this is important to you, we'll listen. And Antonis can be like, there's nothing more important, however you
Yeah.
decide to have them play out, where
Right.
they're like going at each other and she's using the painting to bring them back together
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because she knows that she has this shameful secret, this moment. And it's not just here about the myth, she also has to tell them that there's there were two men,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah.
And this is also this moment of shame for her, because like as a parent, you don't really want your kids to know what
No.
your sexual
No.
conquests
No.
were
Right.
in your
Right.
20s, right?
So if you look about down to 8, the truth of the two fathers, is that what we're talking about right now? So we have,
So I think there's this moment where it's like up here,
yeah.
it's Lita had two men, I had two men too.
Right. Okay.
They're
Okay. Yeah.
like, what are you talking about?
Right. Right. And yeah. And down on the bottom, it's more. There's more
Right.
to it than just that. Yeah.
So, why
Got
are
it.
you telling us this? Why are we talking about this? What does who you slept with 3 decades ago matter with what the doctor is telling you now?
Uh-huh.
Then she's like, because it's about the DNA.
Right. It's not about the, yeah.
Right? It's not necessarily about the kidneys, it's about the DNA. I
Mhm.
lied to you. I used this diagnosis to answer a question that I've always thought I knew the answer to,
Right.
but
Right.
because I'm dying, I had to be sure.
She had to know too.
I
Not only
right.
they should
I
know,
had to
but she had to
know,
know.
you had to know.
Right. Right.
It
Good.
revealed what I was, what I always thought. Your
Uh-huh.
DNA doesn't match. And they're like, we're fraternal twins. Our DNA won't match, right? They're just going along with this idea that, like, just because people are siblings doesn't mean they have the same, right? Like, this, you're not telling us anything new, right?
Mhm.
Like, and that's where the stress is coming from. Like, she's hinting at it. She's saying, well, there's this story here and they're not getting it. And there were two men and they're still not getting it. And then there's the DNA and they're still not getting it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's where the stress is ratcheting up. So it's the shame, it's the stress. It's like, oh my God, you're actually going to make me say the words, right?
Right.
And that's when you get here. And this is where she just breaks down and she gets to
Okay.
this fear and she looks at them and she says, you two have different fathers,
Right. Right.
right?
Good.
And they can explode there. You've got that language of that's not possible. Um, why are you telling us this?
Right.
Right. And this is right.
I never
One of
heard of such
them,
a thing or whatever, you know.
right.
It's
And
a myth.
then
No, it's not a myth. It's reality.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then, maybe one of them is like, scientifically, that's not possible. And maybe she says something, you had all the really scientific language. Maybe
Yeah.
to rebut that that's not possible, she says like the scientific name of it
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
prove that it's possible, but then like she doesn't have to go into the explanation.
Right.
I'm seeing kind of in my mind, I don't know if this is how you feel, but to me it feels like Antonis is the that's not possible. Why are you telling us this? Our whole
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
has been
Right.
a lie.
Right. Yeah. That's what he
Whereas
would say. He would say.
Pastor's more about the why are you telling us this? You only have 3 months to live.
Right.
I just want to be with you. I don't care about the
Right.
past.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
And
That's
then again, this is where they can turn on each other. And Antonis can be like, you never cared about a dad,
yeah.
but I did.
Right. Right.
Right. And
Yep.
then that's when she has to go to this moment where she's like, but there's more.
Uh-huh.
Antonis, your dad is actually alive.
Right. There's always more. Yeah. Yep.
Right. And
Yep.
this is where that like all of all the feelings that we've felt with her before this, the shame, the fear, all comes crashing down when she says your dad is actually alive and he wants to meet you.
Hmm.
And then every fear she's ever had, he throws in her face. I wanted a dad. I mourned him. You were never enough. You could never be enough. I hate you. I can't believe you kept this from me. I don't
Yeah.
ever want to talk to you again.
Right.
Maybe it's even, I hope that cancer eats you from the
Yeah.
inside
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I
Yeah.
think you can go really big and really mean
Uh-huh.
because I think whatever Antonis says, Margot responds with, I know, I know. The
Yeah.
cancer is probably my punishment, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's not just that what he's saying is so hurtful and so painful, it's that she's been living this
Yeah.
for their whole lives.
Right.
And that is the emotional gut punch that you've been trying to tell in
Yeah.
this
That's right. That's
story
right. That's right. That's
because
right.
she's faced now with her son, who she loves more than anything, except
Hmm.
his brother, right? She loves them both more than anything, is
Yeah.
now confronting her with this lie that she's been telling.
Good. And you're
And
good
then
at this.
he
You're good at
storms
this.
off. Would you say?
You're good at this.
It's your story.
I know, but you're man, you're really helping me. This is amazing.
Well,
I just had the pieces. We just had to get them in the right order, you know?
yeah. And that's the thing is like you knew what your story was. You
Yeah.
had it all there. I'm just helping you find the
Right.
emotional,
Exactly.
like, how do you craft the story
Hmm.
to make the most impact?
Yeah. This will help with other stories that I write, you know. This is a great lesson here, you know, especially when you actually label, you know, you write write down the emotion, you know,
Yep.
what I'm trying to find here, what I'm trying to do instead of just willy-nilly, you know.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Now you're really tweaking it. Now, if
right.
you really want to delve into it, you can start thinking about emotional intensity. So
Hmm.
when you're talking about this longing and peace, your emotional intensity is about a 1 or a 2. You want your reader to feel good, they're in it, they're with you, but you want it to be, and that's why I initially went with peace,
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
want them to feel at ease.
Right. Are you
longing
talking
for
like
this
a
as
you talking
well.
like a 1 to 10 scale, maybe?
1 to 10, 10
Okay.
being
Okay.
like,
Good.
I'm tearing your heart out, 0
Right.
being like, my heart isn't even beating, right? Like
Right.
I'm undead at that point. So you're at a 1 or a 2, right? Like
Yep.
you want them
Yep.
feeling something, but you don't want to. Whereas originally you started out with this huge fight between the
Right.
boys,
Yep.
that had an emotional intensity of like a 7 or an 8.
Right.
You don't have a lot of room to grow there.
Right.
So emotional intensity here, you're at a 2.
Yeah.
Pride and regret, maybe you're at a 3.
Hmm.
This love and sadness, you're probably still sitting around a 3, maybe inching up
Yep.
to 3.5. Now you get into this sharing the news. You're at a
Uh-huh.
4, pushing into a 5.
Right.
Maybe this moment is actually a 6
Uh-huh.
because of the way the boys react and the
Right.
surge of love and relief, right?
Hmm.
Then she retreats back into herself. You're pulling that back into a little bit of a 4 because you
Yeah.
had that like crest of like this terrible thing. I can't handle it. We can't keep going up to a 7 because then you exhaust your reader. So you pull
Hmm.
Margot back, you let
Yeah. Yeah.
her come back to a 4, we go with her. We talk about the myth, there's some shame there. So now we're back at about a 5.
Yeah.
The DNA doesn't match, you're probably at a 7.
Uh-huh.
The fathers are revealed, you're at an 8.
Right.
Leonidas is alive. Antonius thinks you're the worst mother ever. You've
Right.
crested at a 10.
Right.
He leaves. That takes us back to a 9 because we're
Yep.
devastated that he left, but he's not screaming at us anymore.
Uh-huh. Right.
Castor says, I love you. Don't let him go. Be there with him. He doesn't want me. All of that. That ends you at about a 7.
Right.
So you're
Right.
still high emotional intensity, but
Yeah.
you're not flatlining at the top where it's like screaming and crying and you have to go. We needed a little bit of resolution,
Uh-huh.
but we're not letting them go completely. So that's how
Right.
you can
Right.
kind of think of 1 to 10 on the emotional impact.
That's really, really good. Really good. Man, that's excellent. What a big help.
Good. What
Thank
else
you
do you
so
need?
much.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So when is this due?
you haven't all through February.
Okay, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I'm gonna what I like to do is really kind of get into it a little bit. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
in 2 weeks I can send it to you. We can go
Yep.
over it again. That
Yep.
gives me a couple weeks to fix it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then I should be ready to go. Yeah, I really, really appreciate this, Laura. Thank
Excellent.
you so much.
Yep. All
Yep.
right. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to send it to you
Yeah, that
along with
definitely
the
the
recording.
recording. Yeah.
I'm going to go
All
ahead
right,
and
good.
stop the recording too.